Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We're back again talking more TNA wrestling shenanigans. This is a bit of a sort of weird situation that we've got going on here, at least in my opinion, a little bit, because, in some ways, yes, of course, we're kind of jumping the gun here with some stuff relating to the Rebellion pay-per-view. Now, that might not be too bad, them jumping the ship like that in some ways, because the thing is, Rebellion is a much bigger pay-per-view than what the next pay-per-view will be, which is Under Siege, I believe. I think that's correct. I'm gonna look it up while I'm saying it, because I keep getting confused, because there's Under Siege and there is Unbreakable. I think that is actually, no, it's Unbreakable. I've gotten dyslexic, so that, I think I've said that like a few times. That's because there's two things that start with U and I've gotten confused, but again, still, whatever. No matter. They are jumping the gun on that somewhat. Now, I think we talked a little bit about Unbreakable, but the thing is, the reason that they're having, I finally cottoned on to thinking like this. This is the reason they're having that show at the time that they're having it, is because it's the 20-year anniversary of that show. It's not just because they decided, oh, we're going to put these two shows, close to each other. They just decided to suddenly do this show, and they were like, oh, wait a minute, well, now we have two shows that are really close to each other. So that's what I think's happened. But anyway, there have been two matches announced. Now, the first match announced doesn't really have quote-unquote combatants for it, except for one. So I'm going to talk about this very generally until they actually start announcing the other competitors. And I'm usually thinking that this will have like 6 competitors in it. That's where I'm at with that. But whatever. The Ultimate X match returns. Moose is going to defend his X Division title in Ultimate X. So within the next few weeks and months, it is in April, isn't it? I guess month-ish. I'm sure they're going to have qualifiers for this match. There's not that many people in the quote-unquote X Division as it is anyway, so there's not going to be many people to choose from, so I don't know how you're going to choose too many people. I'd like to see Leon Slater in this match. I don't think it would be bad if he's in this match either, but I don't this. To me, this isn't the time for Moose to lose this belt yet. Every single title reign that he's had's only been 6 months or so long, and it just is dude, give this guy 8 months. Give this guy a year. Give this guy a lot more than 6 months, whatever it is, basically. Because that's what he's been given the last few times, and it's dude, the guy deserves more than that. But yeah, so there isn't any way for me to figure out, especially since there's not a lot of story going along into this yet, who or what or where or how or why, whatever the combatants will be and what stories they'll be in going into this. I think that perhaps, as I said, Slater might be in this, and he might come close to winning it, but somehow, some way, Moose will win it, and perhaps that will lead to Slater eventually getting that one-on-one match with Moose. But I will say that, if that, obviously, again, there's always the potential, but, even so, people tend to, even if there's not that much potential of somebody winning that title, realistically, just on the fact that it's not impossible for Moose to lose this belt at this point, but I think again, you start looking at the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture in a sense? Like, the bigger picture is like really putting over Leon Slater. That's the real, like, ultimate goal. Like, yes, he gets a big win if he wins this match, but it's not as big of a win if he doesn't pin Moose. That, like, you could build that into a story and into the feud, like that he, like, the idea is like Moose didn't get pinned, so therefore it's like, well, you know, this whole thing of like, well, that's what he can't do, like, type thing. He can't pin Moose. You could do that, like, he just got lucky, you know, whatever, all that stuff. But again, like, I don't know, like, it's not the worst, but I feel like, to me, like, again, it might be really tough, but again, I feel like you should crown Slater in a one-on-one, or at least in a match that has a pinfall situation where he does get the pin on Moose, because that, like, yes, again, you do have like some of that stuff to work with. If you don't do that, like, there's always something else to work with, though. The heel has to always find something else to work with, you know, getting more extreme, getting something else, whatever it is, targeting a body part, you know, all this sort of stuff. That the heel has to come through with something else. The heel can't leave the feud alone in some regards. But yeah, the thing here is most people want to see story progression or those things. Most people want to see, well, what's next? You know, like, type thing. Even just hints at what's next, you know, type thing. So if you have someone like Leon or whatever almost win it, you know, type thing, that informs you, okay, this is where the story's kind of going next. You know, there might still be other, you know, things that are, you know, along the way, along that story, hurdles and twists and turns and whatever else. But again, you're getting the idea of this is where this story is ultimately going. So yeah, but anyway, I just feel like, again, it is one of those things where you start to like think a little bit too much about like one competitor, but it is like Slater is pretty much the only competitor in that X division for the most part that, you know, has a really good story kind of going on for himself and has any kind of real like percentage of winning or whatever else or any of that sort of stuff. So it's like you could think of Laredo Kid and then like Octagon Jr., but like they're kind of a tag team. And they're kind of not a tag team sometimes, I guess, whatever, since Octagon and what's name have been wrestling here, there, and everywhere for years, especially what's his name? He won the Digital Media Championship, all of this stuff. So yeah, like, Laredo has done a lot of stuff for a long time. Like, he's lost a lot, but again, you know, he's been featured a lot. So, and mostly featured as a single star, you know. So Ace Austin is in that X division, kind of, but he's kind of looking to branch out, I guess, in some ways. But he's got to figure out other things, I think, to try to climb that kind of ladder. So yeah, but anyway, it will be interesting to see over the next few weeks, month, whatever else it is, to see who's in that match. But again, this is just like somewhat ploys to try to get people to buy the show and whatnot, announcing matches. And it is much like, I do actually agree with this. It is much more important for them to try to sell tickets for this show than it is for them to sell for the upcoming Under Siege, I think it is. I keep getting confused. But yeah, Oh no, Unbreakable. See, I keep getting confused. Whatever. But anyway, yeah, because that, like, yes, that show is important. All the shows are always important, but it's not nearly as important as Rebellion or Slammiversary because those are huge arenas. And yes, the tickets have sold fairly well, but they still need to shift a heck of a lot of tickets. So putting in these big matches is what they need. All right, next match, the TNA World Tag Team Championship match, the Hardys versus Nick and Ryan Nemeth. It's going to be really weird, like, just to kind of only see the Hardys maybe in promos and things like that for the next few weeks or the next month. Because, like, but I think Matt is more injured than, like, supposedly more injured than what Jeff is, at least. So I don't know about that, but whatever. It is what it is. Like, or at least, like, I don't know. Like, maybe they aren't really that injured. I'm not too sure, but again, like they've said, they're not medically cleared, and this will be the first time apparently that they're medically cleared. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see that. Like, obviously, in my opinion, like, in the next few weeks, you've really got to build up Nick and Ryan Nemeth as, like, a solid tag team. A very solid tag team. You have to give these guys wins. You have to make them look good for the next 4 or so weeks or whatever it is, because like, are they going to win the titles here? I don't know. I don't know whether they should or whether they shouldn't. That's not, like, maybe I'll say that in a minute, whether I think that they should win or whether they shouldn't win. It's not up to me whether they should or shouldn't win. But the idea here is that you have to present them as strong. Every time I always say about, like, some of these things, it's like, and I'm sure they will, but again, it's just like, if you don't have a strong tag team going against another strong tag team, then it's like, well, here you have a semi-jobber tag team or a jobber tag team going up against the tag team champs who haven't lost in 8 months or whatever it is. And yes, anything can happen, blah, blah, blah. But, like, realistically, there is no, like, even if they do win, it's just like, well, why the heck did they do that? Like, and unless it's in the right circumstances, there usually won't be much of a reaction because people are just like, oh, they're doing something stupid with the tag titles and putting them on effectively a jobber team. Like, why are they doing that? Like, obviously Nick and Ryan aren't a jobber team, but again, like, they hadn't been a tag team very much and haven't gotten a lot of wins, really, as a team, and especially not in recent history. So, like, they have a couple of matches in recent history as a tag team, but again, like, for the most part, like, their tag team stuff was, like, happening, like, last year, realistically, and now they're going on this new run of tag team stuff. And, like, the Hardys have been wrestling on and off as a tag team for the last, 30 odd years. Like, there's no way that you can, and they've won how many goddamn titles between them? Like, over 30, I would say. So there's no way that the Nemeth can really stack up to that, unless they are booked extremely strong from now until Rebellion, and maybe not, and maybe even if they won against the Hardys, it'd be like, well, they still haven't been booked overall in all context as strong as the Hardys. But again, at least in the last, like, calendar year, perhaps, or at least in the last few months, you would say that they are a strong unit, or they have become a strong unit. And I wouldn't say no to this, actually. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's the worst idea ever. I'm starting to think it is actually kind of a good idea. But I don't know. Because we start to look at saying, well, the Hardys are signed for like a year or whatever it is. I think that was announced like, I can't remember, maybe like Slammiversary or close to Slammiversary. I think around then. So I would say that the end of their deal is probably around Slammiversary, maybe Bound for Glory, maybe. I think that might be kind of close. I think that the best time for them to go from TNA to WWE is around that time, because that would mean that they're like coming back for WrestleMania season kind of thing. So that would, give them, a big boost. And the one thing about potentially not doing that or not changing over the titles is that you could still have the Hardys as TNA tag champions on mainstream, i.e. Raw or SmackDown TV. So I kind of want to see that. Like, it is kind of a weird situation. Like, in some ways, this is one of the first, like, kind of tag teams that they're, like, going up against after they beat the system. Like, they beat the Rascals, and then they kind of have had, like, some matches here and there on TV and whatnot, but they really haven't had, like, many pay-per-view, like, opponents, really, for Matt and Jeff. Like, they've had the NXT guys that they've had to fight and whatnot, but, like, was some plans, obviously, I think, for Hammerstone and Jake Something to face them, but those fell through because Hammerstone got injured, and then, like, Jake Something got injured, so, hope for the best for Jake Something. I know that Hammerstone's come back from his injury and is back to wrestling and whatnot, though he's now not in TNA, though. Again, I kind of am like, why didn't you guys not go back to him and say, hey, let's renew, let's give you some more money, and we'll, push you into the not heavyweight division, but the heavyweight division, the main event scene. So yeah, I don't know, but still, I think that last, like, showing from him, like, with Joe Hendry should have been on a, premium special. It should have been, saved, but whatever. I don't know. Still, like, the rivalry is starting to cook up. It's only really just started, really. And I think, like, the promo that Ryan kind of did was kind of weak. And, like, I don't know, the reasoning was kind of weak. Like, the reasoning's not bad, just perhaps the delivery of it was kind of a little bit weak. Like, I don't know. Like, and I think, like, it should have been more about, like, it shouldn't have just been about, like, saying, oh, you guys came in and tried to take the credit for TNA's success or whatever else it was, because, like, Matt came in basically the same night that, I think it was the same night. No, it was the next pay-per-view when Nick had lost. Sorry, I'm getting the two confused. His match against Moose. So he came in that night. So it was like 1 month, or was it 1 month? Roughly a month after that. And then Jeff came in like another month after that, or was it a month and a bit after that? To save Matt after he lost his match to Moose. Like, so again, like, they came in very rapid fire. They didn't come in like weeks and weeks and weeks later, or whatever, months and months later. It was like, bam, straight away, here's Matt Hardy, basically, and then bam, here's Jeff Hardy. Like, so that's kind of was a weak thing. I think it should have been more about, like, I don't know, you disrespected my family, you tried to drive a wedge between us. There was some of that there. And there should have been more, like, manipulation-ish kind of from Ryan, kind of, I think, telling Nick to do it, like, I don't know. But yeah, I do think that this feud deserves like pay-per-view space. But again, it kind of like, and perhaps that they are legit injured and whatnot. So they're like, well, what are we gonna do? For these guys, and like I don't know whether that was the plan. I don't think it would have been. Doesn't make much sense. But again, perhaps that is because again they did have the idea to do the anniversary of Unbreakable way later on than whatever. So they've already kind of thought of everything that they're going to do for Rebellion and said, okay, we're already booked all that stuff and now we've got to put that on TV so that people, like, again, and it is a more important event, as I've been saying, because it is a huge arena and they need to sell a lot of tickets still for that event. And obviously you can get your tickets now if you want as well. But it's crazy, so strange to be talking about this show, even though it's only about a month away as well. That is just after another pay-per-view. So, like, we'd want to be talking about Unbreakable right now and stuff going into that show. I was saying we were going to probably be talking about that show, but again, they have probably booked a whole lot of stuff, like, off the bat of Sacrifice, which is a bit weird because they just actually filmed it, or they just did it live, and they'd already decided to do, like, yeah, it's really crazy. I'm sure that, like, they had all these plans, and they, like, again, they have to get these plans on TV. Everything that they said, okay, we're gonna put these people in a program, we're gonna put Tessa and Marsha together, in a match at some point. I kind of feel like that's a Rebellion. I don't know. I think they really should hold off on it for a little bit longer, but I don't know. You need more people for Marsha to kind of feud with, and you kind of need more people for Tessa to kind of feud with. So that's also there. And like we're seeing little feuds here and there. One with Rosemary and Zaya Brookside. That seems really interesting. I don't know, like, we talked a bit about Santana and Ali because that feud is straight up fire. But, like, I kind of feel like they should take a slight hiatus from it and kind of let it settle for a little while and kind of, well, not 100%, but kind of make Ali, like, continually running and dodging, like, Santana, so that it can continue on. It is really gonna get annoying kind of quickly in some ways that he keeps dodging him in virtually the same ways all the time, every few weeks or whatever it is. But again, it's like one of those things that you've got to try to, extend this chase for Santana as long as possible, so that you can get to a certain point where it culminates and it makes sense for them to, clash again and friggin' for Santana to finally get his retribution and get everything that he kind of wanted out of, everything that he's been trying to achieve for the last, like, year or plus, whatever it's been. So you're taking him on a journey. And again, again, you've got to get a lot of these other guys going. You can't just sit there and say, well, we're happy with Joe Hendry. Of course you're happy with Joe Hendry. That's great. But the thing is, who knows if he's going to stick around? Like, if he's going to stick around, cool. But you can't just keep Joe Hendry on the top forever. You've got to find a way to take that title off of him. You've got to find a way to get it onto other people, and you've got to find a way for him to come back at a logical point and then maybe re-win it again at some point down the road. You can't just have the same champion all the time, and you can't just have the same person on top all the time. You've got to have other people coming and going. Even if he's the most popular, it doesn't matter. Even if, again, you've got to make other guys, because again, you've got to have feuds for these people to sink their teeth into. You can't just say, oh, well, Joe Hendry's never going to wrestle Santana. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. They have to wrestle at some point, but again, saving it for the point that it matters the most, or whatever it is, or a point that it's like, well, we know Santana is staying, we know Hendry is leaving, or whatever the situation is, or we just can't afford to keep Hendry because WWE really wants him. So it's like, well, what can we do there? And again, like, even if he does go to WWE, he will be a T, like, in some ways, he will be a very much TNA guy, because, he really ran through the ranks, like, in England many years ago, and then the most major promotion that he's been in and been associated with has been TNA. So that's where he won the digital media title. I think he won it more than once, didn't he? Not quite sure, but anyway, whatever. Same with winning the world title. First time he won the world title in TNA. So again, you could tell the same sort of story there with Joe in WWE, kind of. If he goes, but again, he will be like, everyone will still know that he's a TNA guy, at the end of the day, in many ways. Like, he was originally, made here, and that will be good, because it will continue to build that, legacy for people to be like, again, Nick Nemeth came to TNA, was a WWE guy, Mustafa Ali, WWE guy, came to TNA, did really well, like, and he's still now coming back and doing some more stuff. So it's like, and doing even better, and maybe even being on the cusp of a world title run. So again, TNA continues, like, to find ways to not, and they gave Ali a title match, a world title match. I think it was his last match against Nick Nemeth in his first run. But again, they were not just trying to give Nick Nemeth a win because Nick Nemeth needed a win. They were like, well, we kind of want to, show this guy, hey, we will treat you very seriously. We will give you a match with the champion, the world champion, in the main event of Impact, and you guys could go out there and kill it. And I don't know whether I think they said that they had wrestled before, but I can't remember. I think they had, maybe. I'm not too sure. But anyway, yes. Still, you're looking at this match here with the Nemesis. And like I said, would it be the worst thing? Like, maybe not, but I don't think it's quite there yet. I don't, like, I really, like, you really, 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 really have to book them very, very, very strong in the next few weeks for me to believe that they would win those titles. So they've got to beat basically everyone. They've got to beat the Rascals. They've got to beat, who else is there? The Aztec Warriors. They've got to beat everyone. Even if they're guaranteed this match, that does not matter. They need to gain momentum. They need to gain dominance in the tag team scene so that they feel like a big deal. So they feel like, man, are they actually going to win these titles somehow? Like, even if they're not going to win, that does not matter. Like, I don't know, like I said, no one knows except for the creative team. But, like, they could. I still could see that. I couldn't, like, if they are booked strong. But, like, if they're not, then it's like, well, clearly they're not going to. But the thing is, it has been like Nick has been booked a lot stronger than Ryan. So you can have that kind of weak link member of the team in a sense, but it starts becoming like, well, what's going on, guys? You know, the tag team scene there is not all that like strong in some ways. I keep thinking that you need to bring in more guys from NXT as well, just to kind of like pan out the roster as well. But I start to wonder, like at least with babyfaces, like because there's not many babyface teams, but I do start to wonder whether that's, what would you say, ethical, like whether that makes sense. Like, does that work? Is there any efficacy in it? Like, because like even if you say we're going to bring in these NXT guys, okay, cool, for like 5 minutes. Like that's the same thing that happened with Marsha this week, and with what happened with like Jordan Grace with a lot of her NXT call ups or crossing the lines or whatever it was. It's like Cora, it has been the only person, besides I think Wendy Chu, that kind of has had some sort of rivalry. Kind of, and then like Wendy's was very short. She attacked the champion and then like challenged her to a match and then lost. Like it was a really good match, but still, it's like you have to have more than I attacked you to be a really good feud. It has to be going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. You know, like Cora has. Like that was a really good feud, but it wasn't like, it still wasn't a thing. Like it still wasn't as big as other things, and you could still see those other things kind of looming in the background. You know, i.e. Tessa. Tessa does seem like the ultimate like opponent thus far for Marsha, and I start to wonder, like it doesn't matter whether it's going to happen at this show or when it's going to happen, but I've not talked a lot about it, but I do feel like they have had her do some press and some stuff out there and whatnot as well, with a lot of these events coming along. But again, it does feel like they need to address the quote-unquote elephant in the room here, at least with this. And I know that they like kind of don't want to open that can of worms in some regard. They kind of want to just like move on from it, but they really should have done this when they first brought her back as well. Like, it's been way too long without having done this. And again, this is again, where you need somebody who is the face of the promotion of TNA. You need somebody who will come out and say, we are having a press conference after this show, right here, right now, because of this person rejoining the company, and we know that this is controversial, but here is why we're bringing this person back, you know, and why we're giving them another chance, and whatever else it is, and all of that stuff, blah, 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 blah. You have to go through the quote-unquote due process of everything. You cannot bring somebody back and expect people to, like, and maybe you can't expect people to be like, oh yeah, cool, they did a press conference or they discussed it or whatever, and now I'm on board with it. But at least if they do a press conference and do all this stuff and kind of address the elephants in the room, then it's at least like, we know that there is some concern from people So we want to address it straight off the bat. They should have done it straight away. First thing that they did, and said, hey, look, this is the situation. You know, this person, they've been out there. They've been working hard for the last, whatever it is, couple of years. I don't know how long she's been back in the game of wrestling. But they're back now. And we want to give them a second chance. We think that they deserve a second chance. And they're here to make a public statement about the past issues and, you know, get them in the past. You know, we have to move forward. We're going to, you know, we are respecting history, but we're not going to damn people based on their history. And we do believe in second chances for people. So this is Tessa's, you know, second chance here, you know. And even if those rumors or whatever else, it's not true, I'm not saying that they're not or whatever it is. So I don't want people saying, oh, you don't know anything or whatever else it is. Didn't you hear this person say this and that and whatever. It's he said, she said. Okay, I don't have any of the evidence. So unless they actually produce a video of this or a audio recording of this, we don't know for sure. They could be saying anything that they want. And it's funny how, you know, the timing of these things kind of comes together and that sort of thing as well. Why didn't they say anything for God knows how long, and that sort of thing as well. And yeah, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of like, you start to wonder type thing moments there. I don't know. I'm not going to try to take sides again. I'm just trying to say that this issue should have been, you know, nipped in the bud to, you know, right away to start with. It shouldn't have been a thing that still persists to this day and they haven't really addressed. They needed to address this long ago, and yeah, they just really have not addressed this issue. So it would be good if they did address this issue, but that's the only thing that I do think with Tessa needs to be done. You know, like, maybe it's too late to do it at this point. I do feel like it's becoming like, you know, old hat in some ways. So I do kind of feel like perhaps they're hoping that the heat will die down or whatever else it is, or perhaps that they're just like going, well, realistically, all we're doing is doing a favor to WWE because WWE wants her, or WWE kind of wants her, but they can't say they want her, but they wanted to have a, you know, good trial period and see if, like, you know, we can figure out the nuts and the bolts of, you know, this whole thing. I think that, like, as far, like, because again, like, I don't want to dive too deep into it because I don't really want to. I really don't. But because it's hard to separate, in my opinion, real heat from, like, the heat that people have inferring that she's a racist or whatever. And, like, again, I'll go back to one of the promos that she actually had on TV there, that she said, you guys can say all this stuff that you say, but you'll be at my signing booth later on to get a picture and an autograph. So, like, and that is true as well. Like, that's true for Hulk Hogan. Like, he's a definite racist. We know this. There is audio files of it recorded of Hogan saying these things. There is, you know, physical proof of it. So there's no denying that. There's no hearsay. There's pictures and, oh, well, not pictures, but there's, you know, some viable evidence of it, you know. So again, it is what it is. But yet WWE brought him back several times and whatnot. and with barely an apology, I think, as well. So, but yeah, like I'm sure Tessa had to make her own kind of like paths and discussions with people, and maybe that's still ongoing too. So, and that's where they're at, like with that. Like I really don't like. But as far as like even if you consider that the heat, the 100% of the heat that she is getting is because she's a racist or presumed to be a racist or whatever else it is. I don't know. I'm not going to dive into that. I'm not touching that. Okay. Then I still think that from a wrestling aspect, that can be useful. You can make money with this. I don't know whether it's, again, I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, and I'm saying that they're trying to, TNA, they, get my pronouns together, are trying their best to do something with the heat that she has naturally, or from people assuming she's a racist or whatever else it is, and all of that, to generate, again, controversy creates cash. You know, that whole idea. That's what they're trying to do. Beyond that, they know that she's an extremely, extremely talented wrestler. And if you look beyond, like, the heat that she's getting and whatever the negative reactions, she's a great wrestler. Like, and she's a great character. And she was a great character before, but then people went, oh, you know, like, we can't have somebody who slipped up and or whatever else, or presumably slipped up, or he said, she said, slipped up. You know what? You know, some people make mistakes in life and such and whatnot. And again, like, if she made those mistakes, I'm not saying she did. I'm not saying she didn't. Okay? Again, I'm going to keep trying to be as neutral as I can. I'm going to say that she should get a second chance if she works to get around those issues. And she's made amends with apparently the person that she called the N-word. So, like, everyone else should stop being so offended by the fact that she did something, or she supposedly did this thing so many years ago. She's been making amends with the person that she apparently did it to. Like, what more do you want from her? Like, nobody's perfect. Like, I don't know whether, like, again, I'm not getting into the he said, she said, he said, she said, you know, whatever. Until there's some concrete evidence that she did say this or she didn't say this or whatever else it is, besides people just saying, oh yes, she said this or whatever, I'm not going to buy into the fact that she said it or she didn't say it. I'm going to remain neutral and say, well, the negative reaction is not good in some ways, but they are trying to make it work. And whether they should do that is, I don't know. Like, again, that's why I think they should have addressed it the first night, the first minute, the first hours that she was going to be in the company. They should have had a press conference, you know, again, about this, and said, we need to address this, or this needs to be addressed before we go any further with this relationship. This person has been working tirelessly in Mexico for the last whatever number of years it's been. And yeah, she's been building bridges and freaking, you know, doing this and doing that. And people don't, you know, want to know about that. They just want to counsel her. And I'm not trying to be against all, you know, and say, oh, this is all this woke shit or whatever else it is, you know, or whatnot. No, I'm just trying to say, you know, people sometimes have to make mistakes or have to be seen to be making mistakes in order to grow sometimes, you know. So if somebody does make that mistake, or is at least labeled with making that mistake, then they have to go away. They have to try to, repair that image that they have, that relationship that they have, that regard that they have. And this is part of that. This is the next step of her trying to say, hey, I'm trying to, make amends for what happened in the past. So that's where we're at with that. I do not want to get into this issue beyond that. But again, I do feel like if you attributed 100% of her heat to like being racist or not being racist, whatever, I think you would be wrong. Because she does get heel heat at the right times in matches and in promos. So it's not just them calling her racist all the way through. Yes, that does happen at points in some of these promos and some of these matches. But again, she gets the proper heat required, and it's not, them booing because she's a racist. It's booing because she did something a heel would do, and people have lost themselves in the moment of the art of wrestling. So again, those people that are again saying, this and that, oh, she's only getting heat because of this. No, people forgot that she was had said that, or people forgot that that was the issue, because now she actually got heat for doing something as a heel, or saying something as a heel. She put her opponent down. She, or verbally or physically, I should say, I guess, because you could put your opponent down physically or verbally, I guess, as well. But again, in that regard, it felt like that was heel heat to me, at least, as a professional wrestling watcher for many years. That doesn't feel like just boo, racist, boo, or whatever. It feels like, damn, that heel, they're getting the heat, from my perspective, from the audience's perspective, it's like, boo you, boo heel, boo. They forgot it was Tessa Blanchard, a so-called racist or whatever. It could have been Steve Lombardi in there or whatever it is. It doesn't matter who it is. Again, it doesn't matter. As long as the person is working and working heel, they would have got that reaction to a sense. Yes. So could anyone do that? Yes. But again, I don't know. I don't want to comment on it. It probably wouldn't have been my decision, and if it had been my decision, as I said, the first thing that I would do and say is, we have to nip this in the bud. And I do think that perhaps that they should, they should have let it out to be an interview as well, or let her do some interviews as well, especially early on, and address the issue head on. We are going to go ahead and pay for Chris Van Vliet or whoever else it is, Amori Hawani or whoever it is, to do a very, very, very hardball questions type interview, so that this is out there and that we have addressed this on multiple fronts. This is, this thing. We're actually going to invest in this and make sure that people understand, not just from a perspective of, we're going to put this on our press release or whatever else it is. We are going out there and actively trying to, especially in the early months or month, nip this in the bud. Do not shy away from it. Tackle it head on. Get rid of it, or try to get rid of it as hard as possible, and then move on. Like, that is what my strategy would be. Like, if this was me. Tackle it head on as quickly as possible and then move on. Like, if people aren't going to come for the ride, then they aren't going to come from the ride at the end of the day. But showing what is going on, what the decisions were, everything else behind it is, I think, where they went wrong. That is where I do think that they went wrong. And that they, that is one thing that I think, has really tripped them up in the last few months. Now, you can't see that again on anything, on any metric, and whatsoever. So, the idea that TNA has flubbed themselves, has made the wrong decision somehow, some way. Perhaps they have. Again, I'm not going to weigh in on that part of the discussion in some ways, because I feel like then you've got to take a position. I don't want to take that position. I feel like, based on the data, that they've sold out every arena since, and even sold it. I think they sold it out beforehand, but they've still sold out many arenas afterwards. Again, it hasn't hurt viewership, it hasn't hurt tickets, it hasn't hurt merchandise sales, it hasn't hurt signees to the TNA Plus app. So on every single metric, they're still going up. They're still doing better, except for their TV, because they've got zero TV effectively anyway. But still, they have, on every other metric, stayed consistent or been going up. So, to those people that's saying, oh, well, this was the wrong decision or whatever, well, based on the numbers, we can't see that, so, yeah. Go suck an egg, essentially, in a sense. Or go at least get yourself educated on what the actual statistics are actually saying. Because you can say things without the knowledge, but once you have the knowledge of saying, well, you know what, even if I think it's the wrong decision, the data doesn't support that. Did they shoot themselves in the foot? In some regards, yes, perhaps. But in regards of sales, in terms of dollars, in terms of views, in terms of every metric that matters, like, they haven't gone down, people haven't turned away, or whatever else it is, and said, fuck you, TNA, because you hired assumedly a racist in Tessa Blanchard. That hasn't happened. And perhaps that is because the US right now is a bunch of, at least half the US is a bunch of racists. So, I don't know, but like, the audience for TNA usually doesn't seem to be consisting of those people, at least for the most part. And I think people are starting to wake up to the issues that are at hand in the US right now. So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, hope for the best over there for the people that are there, that are trying to make things better, but for the people that, want to watch the world burn effectively, get fucked, in my opinion. Same with people, again, just to kind of wrap up with saying TNA should go under or anything like that, or get purchased by WWE just because they did this, or they did that, or did this other thing, or whatever else it was that they didn't agree with. Get stuffed, go suck an egg, because that is not, how you get a healthy wrestling environment. There will never, ever be, like, AEW was a freak occurrence. Really a freak occurrence. There have been promotions throughout the years that have tried and failed. Many of them failed. 99% of them, like even 99.99% of them, I think, have failed to get off the ground as well as what TNA has done in the past 20-something years, 23-something years, or whatever it's been. So again, people who say, that it sucks or this or that or whatever else it is, besides WWE and the freak that is AEW, no one has even come close to what TNA has done in the last 23 years. So until you can do that with another promotion, which you probably can't do, it's very, very, very difficult. Go and get stuffed because you cannot talk, because you have not proven that you can do better than what they are doing. So put up or shut up, effectively. But anyway, I will put up and shut up here with this one. Rambling here on about these other things, these other feuds that we could see at Rebellion, but we are definitely seeing some of these other feuds and things going on going into Rebellion. So yes, I am waiting with bated breath for some of that and more. I do feel like Joe Hendry and Elijah will clash. I do kind of feel like that's either at Slammiversary or Bound for Glory, though. I don't know. I feel like you've got to kind of, at some point, actually say that Elijah isn't trying to manipulate Joe Hendry and is just actually going to, be a legit challenger and shake Joe Hendry's hand and say, look, I have now been working here for the last however many months, and I think that I have earned myself a title shot against you. Because you are the champion at the current time. You know what? The next event is either Slammiversary or Bound for Glory. Let's do it. This is the time to do it, and let's go. I will be interested to see that. But it is tough. Because, again, if you do it that way and don't have Elijah betray Joe, it's like two baby faces going up against each other. And again, you might have that thing where it's like, well, Joe's leaving, so I don't know. You might have that thing where it's like, well, we actually want him to drop the title to somebody else. Or you want to kind of maybe put in Kazarian into the match. Now, I don't know whether you could do that with Kazarian at Bound for Glory. You can do it at Slammiversary, but not Bound for Glory. Because that's when his title shot actually ends. That's when the Call Your Shot gauntlet, has to be renewed by somebody else. So he has to call his shot at some point before that. So, and then somebody else will get, the Call Your Shot and have to call it at some point. I actually think that the Call Your Shot is honestly a bad idea in some regards, but I do like the concept of it because it is basically just like the Royal Rumble in a sense. It almost should be its own thing, its own show, or its own... Like, it almost should just be a thing that, basically the same as the Royal Rumble. Move it to another show, maybe, I don't know, Victory Road, because that's usually the show before Bound for Glory, and then whoever wins the Battle Royal, the Gauntlet, whatever, gets a title match at Bound for Glory. I don't know, that could work, but again, it is kind of like, well, at a certain point, you're doing the same thing, so it's kind of like, again, I know a lot of people want the Bound for Glory series back as well. Now I'm rambling on about that, but, I just want to cover this and say, well, what's going to happen with these feuds? When are we going to see, what are we going to see from Joe Hendry at Rebellion? When is this going to happen? When is that going to happen? Because now I'm only doing a few of these a month or whatever it is. I'm not doing 30 or 40 of these a month. I'm only doing a couple or whatever it is. So I want to cover as many of my things as what I kind of can in one talking point, rather than, coming back and having to have another discussion here or there. Certainly I will when they reveal more matches or whatever else, but for the initial one, I want to get all these other story points out there, so at least when they announce something or when we have something to talk about later on, we can refer back to this from then, or from thoughts, thinking what are they going to do here? Why are they going to do that? So again, and the thing is about Elijah and Henry, it's they do need more main event heels. And it is well, I don't know. So should this be, this cordial relationship? Don't know. For now, it's fine if that's the angle that you're kind of going for, where Elijah does lull Henry into this false sense of security and then turns on him or whatever else it is. Kind of reminds me of the Bully Ray, Josh Alexander feud in some ways. But yeah. No, I feel like it would be better if it was heel versus babyface. Obviously, that's me. That's me. But you could keep Elijah as a babyface throughout this run, and then kind of when maybe Kazarian's the world champion, or when somebody else is the world champion, you can kind of be okay, well, here comes Elijah, to challenge them. And maybe Elijah's not going to win, but it's a big time challenger. Elijah's been here for months, been winning consistently, and that sort of thing. You don't need to just have him there to face Henry. You can have him there to face somebody else, or whoever it is, or whatever it is. You're there to give this guy an opportunity to work in your roster and help elevate the other guys that are in it, and help draw tickets and buys. That's the idea of anyone and everyone that's in the company, but especially somebody like a fairly major name like Elijah. So would they turn him heel? They could, obviously, but would it be better if he just stays there, stays consistent for a few months, gets a title shot after Henry loses it, and then loses and then does something else? Then you could have him feud with somebody like that he lost to. Then you could, I don't know whether you could turn him, double turn people. That would be kind of sort of really tough to do, but you could do it. That'd be interesting. That would be an interesting angle. Or you could just keep feuding him with the person that he, beat him, or whatever else it was, or now some other person like W. Morrissey comes into the company, or whoever it is, or whatever it is, comes and starts attacking him, and it's now I've got to, this other thing to deal with, or whatever else it is. So give him another opponent to fight, give him something else to do, so that you have a few more months, or whatever else it is, because I don't know how long his contract is. But yeah, I'm assuming it's a lot like Nick Nemeth's contract, in many ways, But yeah, guys, that's it. I think I've tapped out, and I've gone on my tangents, and I hope you guys have enjoyed me discussing the opening salvos for this show. I am going to be extremely interested to see how they put together these two shows upcoming, the Under Siege and this show, or Unbreakable. I keep getting them confused. I will continue to keep getting them confused. So if I say the wrong show, do keep in mind that I probably have gotten it confused. I've gotten dyslexic and forgot which one's coming first or what's happening or when and where and whatnot. So yeah, whatever. But anyway, guys, as I said, hope you've enjoyed and hope you'll join me again in another one.